Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank y'all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hey, what's up? It's Suave the Jedi.
Hello.
Yo.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do, give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Okay, I'm Suave. I am from Portland, Oregon, and I'm a producer first, but I'm an artist and I make hip hop and R&B music.
Oh, hell yeah. I dig that. Yeah. And have you been in Portland your whole life?
No. I've been kind of all over. Been in Portland for about 7 years now. Mm-hmm. Before that, I was in Minnesota.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hey, we moved kind of here at the same... I've been here technically my whole life. That's the whole thing. But I moved here in 2016 permanently. So
nice.
We're not too far off.
No, not at all.
And what got you into music initially?
Initially, I feel like music has just always been around. My parents were always listening to music. Mm-hmm. I was always, beating on a table, making beats, which later progressed into 88 key keyboards. And my first love was drums. So
okay,
that's kind of where it started for me.
And did you get a chance to actually play drums and own a kit?
Oh yeah,
okay, hell yeah.
My first kit was a Rockwood, and I fucking loved that drum set. It went to maybe 2 to 3 homes. It traveled across country with us from when we moved from Oregon to Minnesota.
Okay,
and then I later was able to get into marching band, so I did that.
So you were really all about it. Hell yeah,
I was in it, man. I love that shit.
And then when did you transition over to production?
It was a pretty quick period between, I'd say. Here's the thing. I was always into production. I had this 88 key Yamaha that had 5 programmable sounds in it. So you could, it was like its own DAW.
Yeah.
So I kind of made beats with that. The first beat I ever made was This Is How We Do.
Okay.
By Scotch Storch.
Yep.
The dun, 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 like that.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking icy. So I made that beat. And I'd say when I was about 13, 14, my pops actually was he used to be in a go-go bands out in DC.
Mm-hmm.
But that, I don't know how he transitioned into making beats, but he had a computer, and that computer fell on it, and then that's where I was just like, this is crazy.
So you had access to it kind of from the get.
Yeah.
Okay. Hell yeah. I dig that.
Yeah, it's cool.
And I guess was anybody else? Obviously your dad was musical, but was anybody else in your family any kind of musically inclined?
Yeah. My mother has a great voice. She sung for a couple of different artists in the 90s, and and she was a background singer for them. And my sister kind of took after that. And, we were both in choir and band. So everyone was kind of really into music.
Yeah. So you really kind of had no choice. You were born into music, and you've kind of lived through it ever since.
Yeah, man, exactly. You go to my grandma's spot, she's got crates of vinyl all up in the garage. Her twin brother as well. Some of the most massive collections of vinyl I've ever seen.
Hell yeah.
It would be a room like this just filled with crates. Yeah.
This room is enormous.
Oh no, and this is. If it's filled with crates,
no.
he's got a 3-bedroom, and one of them is for his record records. You know what I mean?
Oh, damn. Okay, yeah. So it is pretty full on. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then before we get into a little bit more of what you do presently, I have a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on. This first one is one we ask early, it's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
This is crazy. I remember this like it was yesterday. I used to mow lawns. I had all my money, and I went and bought one of those Walkmen. It was like an orange Walkman that had speakers on it. And I didn't have any CDs. I think the first CD I had in there was a Switchfoot CD.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm listening to like Christian rock. I'm like, dude, I want to listen to something other than Grits or Switchfoot. So I think I don't even, was it RCI or RCA? One of those stores. I bought 4 CDs. It was Chris Brown's first CD.
Okay.
Future Sex Love Sounds by Justin Timberlake.
Okay.
Demon Days by the Gorillaz.
Nice. One of my all-time favorites.
The album changed my life. And Wanted by Bow Wow. And those 4 were in my little rotation for ever.
That is a quality rotation.
Yeah, dude.
Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. I see
crazy,
you.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, good taste as a kid.
Yeah, man. I come from,
I mean, I guess, yeah, you came from multi-generational good taste, so you had no chance.
My mom was listening to like Shania Twain and fucking, like Tracy Chapman and Lauryn Hill. Like those 3 people are so different. And then my dad was listening to like Chuck Brown and Redman and like Raekwon. So I got like the best of both of every world.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was like specifically one you wanted to go to? So like you saw what was happening, got tickets and went to it.
I didn't get into live shows until later. I want to say Astro World was my first show.
Oh, damn.
And it was here at the Moda. It was in like 2018, 2019, one of those years. I think it was 2018. And that was the first show that I bought tickets for. And I was like, I'm going. Like in Minnesota, you don't have. I live 3 hours away from Minneapolis.
Yeah, you weren't getting out to the coolest stuff.
Nah. So when I got here, it was like that was incredible because I was already a stan of Travis, and then to see that, that's kind of where it just went boom for him. It felt.
It's funny that show has definitely been mentioned as the answer to this question for a few people.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's cool.
Obviously, it was a big deal.
It was a pivotal moment.
It was such an experience.
Yeah.
And then before we get into you in the present day, do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously? I mean, obviously it's been around you forever, but was like there a moment where you were like, this is it 100%?
Yeah. I dropped out of college due to an injury, and to relearn how to do anything, I just reverted back to music. And so I just started doing some research and looked up a audio engineering school. It was Full Sail, I think, was the first one, and then there were a couple of other little companies that I was like kind of looking at, and ended up interning at Winterland Studios in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And that's where I had never had any like studio experience before, but I just knew that this is something I could put all of my energy and my mind to and feel like I'm getting something back from it. And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, this is like, whether or not it's lucrative, which, we can get into that later. Music is that thing. It was more
That's
like
a whole other episode.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, it was more just about the discovery and learning so many things about something I had already had such a deep well of love for. And that was the moment for me.
Oh man, the first time you touch a studio console that has like 80 knobs per channel, you're just like,
no, like unreal, like just I still to this day I think about where I was at and my mind state that led me to that place, because I was in a wild place, man. I was like 20. I just moved to Minneapolis by myself. I had no idea what I was doing, and that was like the real anchor for me.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, that sounds rad. I mean, I imagine that's going to kind of steer a lot of the questions we're going to get into next. But let's go ahead and talk about you in the present day. And we're going to get a super easy one out of the way.
Yeah.
How'd you pick the name?
Suave, it just kind of feels like me. I've always just heard swag, suave, debonair. I felt it. my first name was Composure because I'd always been told, I had an old soul and I know how to hold my composure. But I just didn't think that name stuck.
Yeah.
And I think one day I was just writing. I was trying to think about how I arrived to it. I think I was writing and I said something about how I'm so suave and I'm like, oh shit, that's it. And since I was a producer first, I just went by produced by Suave.
I recognized the tag.
Yeah. And that's really cool too, man. And so it stuck for a while. And the Jedi didn't come until I released my first project. And there's something about, giving yourself you're something, right? There's the name and then there's just something, like whether it's Meg the Stallion or Chance the Rapper. I kind of liked that.
Yeah, I named the.
Raekwon the Chef, And so I was like, the Jedi is cool. It shows my affinity for Star Wars, but on a deeper level, it's more like I have these philosophical, insightful, and intellectually nourishing moments. And I think that's what Star Wars kind of is, the student trying to become the master, but also understanding the balance. And that was it. So Suave the Jedi was born.
Hell yeah. No, I dig that. And it's definitely a little more like memory standing than composure for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Did you have any other fun names prior to that, or was it really just kind of those two?
Oh man, I honestly no. I never really took it that serious until I was like, oh, I gotta have a name to it, and I can't just be.
Yeah.
I could be Adam, but then there was Adam Levine and there was Adam Lambert, and I was like, well, there's already a couple of different Adams. Let me go a different route. And I kind of thought about using my real name, my middle name, which is Kirill. It's kind of a dope name.
Oh,
but
that explains the album.
Yeah, you went deep. You went really deep, dude. And so I think I just use a lot of those pieces as a part of the story to tell, to tell what happens on this journey. And I don't really have any other names, I don't think.
Hey, I appreciate any time people put thought into the name and have kind of a reason to explain it. That's half the reason of the question.
Yeah.
But also, it's a catchy name.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones that once you hear it, you're not going to forget it. I think that goes a long way. But now let's go ahead and let's talk about your writing process. And as a person who produces the beats that they also do, music over, how do you go about getting a track started?
That's always been one of the more fun and intriguing parts about the trajectory of my artistry. Because, I listen to, a Method Man or a J. Cole or, maybe a Donny Hathaway, and how they Donny Hathaway, approaches music in a way that's so emotional. And then a Method Man also does the same thing, but he's more percussive. I'm talking about a rapper versus a crooner, a singer. But for me, I'm always, when I'm making beats, I would make them with the thought of how would this person sound on here. And when I started writing, I'm like, okay, this is where inspiration comes from, and this is how maybe some rappers or some singers sound like the others. It's because we're all kind of trying to emulate each other.
Yeah.
And so early on, my process was to be like, okay, so how would Lil Wayne hop on this beat? How would Chris Brown hop on this beat? I have some songs where I'm singing and trying to be melodic or rapping, and it's kind of like that process of kind of taking on a character, at least early on, and making it my own. And I think through that process, I've been able to kind of find my own voice. So, the writing process is much different now. I think now I more so go on. I do my own writing on the side. I'll write in a journal, and then there will be maybe some melody that I have in my head, and I'll write to melody now. And I think I take that from Drake. I think I give Drake a lot of credit for being able to stick to a melody and then fit words within that melody or that cadence, especially in a triple time sense or just in a vibe. You got to find the vibe. And sometimes when you have already had pre-written stuff, the vibe might not match the beat that that it's for. So now it kind of it varies, it varies beat to beat, and then if I find the vibe, I'm like, okay, this is it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Do you when you're making beats, do you like often think like, oh, I could do this over this, or like do you have like that separation of like, this is me making beats, now this is me putting words over it?
That's a great question, because it changes, man. Like it really does change, because sometimes my process now is I have two brains. I have my two Macs. I have one that has Logic and then one that has beats on it, right?
Okay.
And I was, born and bred FL Studio gang. Like that's where I make all of the beats at. And then I later learned how to do vocal production on Logic. It just seems like the easier DAW for me to use.
Yeah, especially if you're going Apple platforms. Since
right.
proprietary-ish.
Yeah, right. Pro Tools was a little bit too much for me, and then Ableton is just like, it's cool, but like I don't need that science.
We won't dig into it too much on your episode, but I actually went the opposite way. I went from Logic. I used Logic 8 and 9.
Okay.
I bought books. Like I'm you give me old school Logic and I can run circles around it. I know every function in it. But then when they switched to 10, I didn't like the changes of the GUI. I didn't like how they made it almost GarageBand-esque.
Yeah.
And because I was using an older computer that could have run 10 if I updated the OS, but I stayed at 10.6.8. So I stayed on 9. And then one day the computer crashed and I had to get something new. And I worked at Guitar Center, so I got Ableton Standard for free. And so I switched over to, and I realized the track run version, not the clips, the launch view, whatever it's called, the track run version of it, and the surface level accessibility of everything is actually so good.
It's so
music
clean.
creation.
It's super clean.
Yeah. But like, that's just me having gone, like I said, the opposite direction. Now, having learned about the powerhouse that Logic is, a little piece of me wish I had stayed, but I got to stand on Ableton.
Yeah.
So that's Ableton.
Yeah.
Sponsor me. But no, there is no wrong answer when it comes to DAWs.
Yeah. For me, it was just like, how can I shorten the distance between what's going on in my brain to the DAW, right? And I knew FL is consistently coming out with more updates, and so it's become this thing that's it's just cool to kind of be a part of that cult, because it hasn't always been a thing, Well, it has been a thing for people, but people kind of shit on it, just like a garage band, right?
It was one of those ones where it's like, it was there was Pro Tools and there was Logic for the longest time, and then Fruity Loops
bass.
Yeah, I mean, is it really? Yeah, I mean, and like Reason was kind of the like outlier.
Yeah.
But then like, FL kind of came in as the like, everybody could pirate it. Everybody could do, like, it didn't use a lot of like third party stuff and this and that. And so everybody kind of pushed it away. But all the people that kept using it, they were like, no, we love this. And so the Fruity Loops just kept making stuff for it. And now it is really a force to be reckoned with. It still kind of owned that spot instead of like, trying to like be like, no, we're just going to be the toughest. We're not Black Sheep anymore. We're the Black Bulls. You know what I mean? Like, we have really made it our own. And so that, I think, really stands kind of the sands of time for Fruity Loops in general.
Yeah. And so just to revert back to your question, like, my brains are, I've learned that just for the sake of my attention span, I have to pay attention to one or the other. So I'm still a producer at heart, right? I got to go in, and if I'm inspired to do something some way, like with my last project or the last few projects, my goal has been to craft a cohesive sound and to stick to that sound for each project. Early on, you can kind of hear, kind of where I'm coming from. And it's funny to go listen back to my own stuff and be like, okay, I see where the inspirations lie. But, with the one the project that I released this year in I think it was January, February, it's called Life Well Lived. I heard this beat on Drake's album Scorpion. The song was called 8 out of 10, and it was produced by Boy Wonder. And I was like, dude, this beat is just so luscious. It's so like, the snare's hard, the kick is hard as fuck. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make a bunch of beats that sound like that. So, kind of within that Rick Ross, Justice League realm, kind of like Just Blaze, just a lot of natural percussion, but then like big band sound in the background, and then hard lyrics. And that was my intention, and that has been my intention for each project. And, same with the one that I just released in June this year. It is more along the lines of like a Travis Scott, Kid Cudi, ethereal, synthy, Mike Dean kind of vibe with some trap influence, and then, some melodic happenings.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's my brains are what's the vibe? How can I stick to it just for my attention span? And then how can I make that come to life by being consistent?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
No, I dig that. And then I guess once you get a track finished writing, like, so, it doesn't have to be released per se, but once you've gotten it down, and I guess, do you do pen to paper, or are you mostly freestyles?
I do. It's a little bit of both, but I use a lot of my iPhone.
Okay.
I use Notes.
Well, I mean, sorry. Digital pen. Do you write it, or do you just spit it free every time?
If I find a track that requires more freeform melody, then I'll go in, and that's why I have my Logic set up. Because then I'll just like kind of mumble or sing or find those melodic pockets, and then that'll call for me to write lyrics and kind of just punch them into where those melodies are.
Yeah.
And those are some of the funner songs, in my opinion, because it just feels more free and it isn't so surgical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. But then I guess the rest of the time you're putting pen to paper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we're gonna take a look at some of your music now.
Okay.
Now, I make some notes. I always do. I go through everybody's. I will tell you now. I listen to pretty much everything you have on Spotify.
Okay.
I like all of it. I listen to all of it.
Okay.
And this one's going to get a little long. I usually don't go as long as these, but this one's going to happen.
Fine.
So obviously, I checked out your most recent album, This Feels Right.
Yeah.
And it's a very good representation of where you are now. Having listened to your previous stuff, you can tell the progression is there, the like solidification of all of your approaches have kind of come to this point. I mean, all the beats are sturdy, the flow is dialed, but I kind of want to say a little bit more about my overall experience. And that's that. And I had to rewrite this a couple times because your music is so multi-dimensional. There's just this like if you listen to just the singles, it's very melodic. It's very bouncy. It's modern but original sounding, and then everything post like 180 with and is it Ran or Ryan? Ron. Oh yeah. Darn. With Ron Harper, it kind of shifts the focus almost, and it gives you kind of this more like self-directed image. But if you go and listen to the albums, which I appreciate that you had intros and spoken bits for all of them. Yeah. It's like that just kind of touches my heart. But you get this really insightful journey. If you start from is it well fuck?
Yeah.
And you go all the way to now, that just kind of perceives you in a really interesting way. Kind of like almost how like Tyler does it, like you really get to like experience his growth.
Wow.
And then first of all, in well fuck, you sounded so young, like not to say that you sound old now, but there's like an age, but even past that, like your mood, the sounds, your attitude, it kind of had this presentation to it. And then it grows through all of the other albums. And even there are hints of sounds that I hear. And it was interesting that you shared that perspective earlier, how you're like, I try to imagine this or that. Cause when I was listening to it, I had a hard time locking down any one sound, but a few that jumped out at me were, Bryson Tiller, Lupe Fiasco, Novelise, and I don't know if you know Chuck Sutton. You should check out Chuck Sutton. I think it would be a really cool, I'm actually really excited that you don't know who that is, because I think you're really going to like his sound and find a lot of appreciation in it. Not because you sound just like him, but because there are stylistic similarities that I think you would really enjoy. And I think he's like a Native Instruments sponsored person, because he is an engineer guru when it comes to that. But to wrap it up, because I know I've been talking for a minute, I usually do this bit where I pick out a personal track that I really enjoyed and I kind of break it down. But I'm going to be honest with you, I could not pick one. I really just had a hard time. So instead of the normal breakdown, I picked a song I enjoyed from all 4 of the albums that were there. And I'm going to list them off now, and we'll kind of go, I put the albums out of order on here, but for Off This Feels Right, I chose Platinum Vines.
Fire.
Off Krill's tape, or is it Krill? Did I say it right? Krill's tape. Aloe Vera. Off of I Mean Yeah, It was good for that.
Okay.
And for Well Fuck, it was Wave Runner.
Fire.
Yeah, those were the ones that like. I mean, all of them are good. All like I listened to those albums a couple of times after putting these notes together. Big fan. But I have been talking forever. Thank you for letting me share that experience, and thank you for making quality music. But I am curious to know now, what are some of your favorite tracks to perform?
Well, first off, that was incredible. Like that level of detail and the time it took to be able to eloquently talk about my catalog is sick, man. But my favorites to perform have to be. I love Good for That. I mean, I'm glad you pointed that one out. That one's such a syrupy R&B banger. That one's fun. I have. You talking about Platinum Vines, one of my best friends and just creative powerhouses, Greens, we have a lot of tracks together, and those ones are super fun to perform live just because of the energy that we share. And what else I would say? Karina, that one's a fun one.
That almost made the list. Shout out Lamba Lawson.
Yeah.
It was so close to making the list.
Bro, shout out to Lambo for real, man. Just another creative, another massive, insanely talented mind. I'd say those two, and another track I performed last year, and I'm actually releasing at the end of this month, called "Choose Me."
Oh hell yeah!
It's more like a West Coast, 95 BPM track that's super fun to perform.
Hell yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And that segues well into this next question. Let's look at some of the music that you're working on that hasn't come out yet. What are some of the things that you would or how would you describe it? I guess, what are some of the things we can look forward to with new music you're working on? Is it all kind of going to be in that West Coast vibe, or can we expect a few different styles and tastes as we've come to know?
For me, the question I keep asking myself is, how do I want to continue to steer the ship?
Yeah.
And how can I continue to grow? And when you talk about my art being multifaceted, kind of multidisciplinary and multidimensional.
Yeah.
I never want to do the same thing twice, but I also want to give a sense of familiarity.
See, and I think you nail that perfectly, to be honest, because you, like I said before, it feels very modern, was the way I described it earlier. Actually, I'm going to make sure I say it just the way I said it before. It felt modern but original. Like like there was never a moment in time where I was like, oh, this is someone else. It always sounded like you, but it felt comfortable. It felt current. It felt like present in the realm of today. Like I could put this in a playlist of all the names I listed. It could go perfectly in there without ever being like, oh, this is clearly somebody from blah, blah, blah. But I would know it was you. And I think that's I just think that's really cool. That's
the coolest compliment ever, because, I think when it comes to making music, and not to go on a huge tangent.
No, please.
I would be remiss to say that I don't want a sound that is unique and that's something that people can enjoy and that attention that comes from that. But truly, this is all a part of like my self-discovery and how I've been able to find myself. So you're hearing that in every single project. And so, for the next wave, I actually have 2 projects that are done. I went on a huge... After that was a pivotal year for me, because that was my first studio album that I recorded at Page Street. And shout out to Frankie and the team there. I mean, we just locked in, man. We locked in for like a month and just knocked all those songs out. And my goal was to record as much music as possible and to just set out release dates and then kind of figure out the rest later. And so we're in the middle of July. I've released 2 projects this year, and a couple singles, and each one has a different vibe. The first one was boom bap inspired. The last one was trap. This next 3-pack I'm throwing out is some West Coast inspired, tracks from a producer from Portland, actually, B-Knock. He's an incredibly one of those people where you're just like, I don't know how you do what you do.
Yep.
But like, you're a fucking wizard, bro. Like, he plays the keys, he's on the drums, and I'm not talking just like somebody that like me who can just kind of tinker around. Like, this dude is like, you throw him on like a BET gospel cipher or something, and he's that guy that's
he's
there,
just
you know
doing
what I
it.
mean?
He's just doing it.
Monster.
Yep.
So, you know, he produced every track on this 3-pack that I'm throwing out. It's kind of like some Bryson Tiller. There's kind of like some Jagged Edge on there, and then there's something that sounds completely different. And so there's a little bit of everything, but a little bit more of experimenting, more on the R&B crooner side. And the next project that I'm releasing after that is called Horizon Golden, and that is more like this is also produced. So all of my other projects produced by me. This next go around is produced by Drew the Universe, the Horizon Golden, and he's got this like really ethereal. Like, imagine reading like the Bhagavad Gita and then trying to make like music after reading that. Okay. So like, he's got like these ethereal, like really spacious soundscapes, but with like hard hitting percussion in some of them. And I'm kind of just like, there's some Dido kind of vibes on here.
Okay.
Yeah. There's more R&B trap. I'm kind of subdued, but you know, I'm really letting the scene go a little bit more on here.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be Lucky Day or Eric Bellinger, but you know, I hold my own because I love singing. I love melody, and so that's where I'm at now, man. Is it's like, how can I continue to keep myself excited and wanting to create, and also what have I not given, you know, the people that are listening to my music, my fans, I'd say.
Damn.
You know?
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to all of that. That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Now let's take a moment and we're going to step back and we're going to kind of look at music as a whole. We're going to kind of big picture this. What are some of the things about either just new music in general, if you stay current, or just music that's new to you that you enjoy and are finding inspiration from right now?
I just think there's so much creativity going on right now, like especially in the city. If you look and just zoom in on Portland right now, there are so many dope artists here.
You mean like go back to every episode prior to this one?
Oh yeah, I mean, just this year alone, I'll give you like my top 5. Right, for me, the people that I'm like huge fans of, it would be, and this is in no particular order. Yeah. It's Lambo, Yellow Trash Can. If you've heard of them.
I messaged them a couple times trying to get them on the show.
I mean, they're just like, they're doing them. Yeah. And I love to watch it. Dior, of course. Like, he's like just a force. Like, I've gone to Kelly's Olympian and seen them.
D-Worthy.
Yeah, shout out D-Worthy, bro. And there's a couple more. There's Ron Harper, of course. He's dope. He's just super talented. And I think that's kind of where I'm at. You know, I think in terms of who's doing it in the city. And then Dante Thomas, Boca the Grape. I mean, these are all really, really dope, down to earth people that make great art, and that's like, those are my go-tos. I'm sure there's plenty. I was gonna
say I have 2 I'll add to that list after we're done with this.
Yeah. I'm curious to know.
All right, I'll put them on here. 2 I think you should check out Twan. TWON. And Jordan Fletcher.
Word.
Yeah. Everybody, if you don't know who they are, definitely check them out.
Daniel, too. Daniel's cold. Daniel's cold as fuck. You know who Daniel is? Oh, yeah. He's super cold, bro. And, I mean, he was doing a lot of, I think he's producing, like, for fucking Eminem, and, like, he's out there.
Yeah.
I went and did just pulled up to a session and did some background singing for him, like, last year, which was sick.
Hell yeah.
And then I learned, like, what he's into, and I'm like, man, it's just, you never know who you're going to cross paths with or shake hands with, and that's been another thing that's kept me going, is like, you know what, I got something here. It might not be where I think it could be or should be, but the part for me that I'm most attracted to is the growth. And the more I just kind of I keep my head up and stay consistent, the more, the better I feel, honestly.
Hell yeah. No, I dig that.
Yeah.
And before we get into this next portion, which is all hypothetical questions, this next one is probably the densest question in the interview. But we talked a lot about, your experience of music, the actions, the reactions. But when it's just you and the music one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
Perception. And love. I get a lot of love back from music. Music is one of those things that I don't think it asks anything of me or us. It just kind of is one of those things. It's like air. It's like you could hear music. I hear music in everything. Whether that's I'm sure there's a tone to the fan that's going on right now. There's a frequency to the hum of whatever's happening outside or even right here. And for me to be gifted and blessed enough to know that, there's a sense of presence and awareness that I get from music. It kind of is just like that thing that keeps me here. So I get everything from music, honestly, if I really answer that question.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
But now let's go ahead and let's move on to some hypothetical questions. And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well.
Word.
But this first one's pretty straightforward. If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive. Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
That's nuts. Who would I want to work with, and how do I want to work with them? That's so hard, man.
I know.
Fuck.
It's not to say if you pick one person, all the other people are off the table. This is just kind of like a...
Top of mind, immediately I said Pharrell. That was just the first one that popped into my head.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It is crazy talented and like weirdly humble about it. Like he knows it and he knows it, but he's fine with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if I were to peel that back and be like, okay, who's my second? Timbaland, bro. Easily.
Ooh, okay.
Timbaland is one of those people that I've just studied so closely. And I'm like, man, like just every I'm sure every YouTube video that I've ever seen that has on the internet, I've seen it. I've seen his TikToks. When he does the reviews, and I think that's super cool, like a really cool way to...
Yeah, somebody like actually takes the time to do it. Chromeo does that now.
Oh, yeah.
If you go on their Instagram, they're like, this is how we made this song.
Oh, nice.
Like, and they do it with the things in their studio.
That's sick.
But that's neither here nor there. Back to what you were saying.
Yeah, no, it was Timbaland, man. He's just the bounce, the insight, he's one of those guys that just seems to be connected to the user,
Yeah, man, him and I don't know. I would love to sit down and interview him, but I would also love to make music with DJ Drama.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that just...
Another dude,
It's just one of those names where you're like, oh, yeah, he's been in so many things.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he's not even hiding it.
No.
He is very present in a lot of the music he makes.
Very much so.
But yeah, that's another name that I was just like, I'm like, damn, every time I think of him, I'm like, why don't more people name him?
We could do a top 50 list and I still would.
Yeah, I still wouldn't cover everybody.
I was thinking like another crazy mind would be like Anderson .Paak, another nutty mind.
I'd like to be in the room for him and Bruno. Anytime.
I could just imagine that being
I would just love to be like a fly on the wall for anything Silk Sonic. Like that
era was different.
Yeah.
That was so different because, you could tell Bruno wrote a lot of that, but you could also tell that Anderson brought a lot of his personality.
That's what I say. I think that one thing that really came from that, because Bruno is talented, like, but every time I heard his music, it just sounded like a very refined version of like obviously this is the best version of this sound.
Yes.
Like it was just good because it was going to be good and he's good.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Silk Sonic, Anderson was like, no, Bruno, step outside the box a little bit. Like get like 15% goofy with it. But then own it.
Yeah.
Own it. Like it's nobody's business.
1000%.
And that was like the moment where like I think that's some of Bruno's best performances.
Yeah, for sure.
And Anderson had a great time. You could tell.
Sure.
You could tell he was just loving it.
Yeah.
But he just does that in general. But we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about you.
Yeah.
And getting into this next question, it's very similar, but subsequently, who's a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
You know what? I'd say I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Dior. He's another one.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I've been in and around the circle, but I've just seen You know, a lot of the stuff. I mean, honestly, Yellow Trash Can, Dior, I'm down to work with y'all. That's it.
Hell yeah. Well, everybody, you know what to do. At them in the comments. Let's see if we can make that happen.
Let's do it.
And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limits, and it's pretty literal in this sense. But if you could perform anywhere in the world, and you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power, it was guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show, and it doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere. Where would you want to perform?
The Alvord Desert.
I don't know where that is.
That's in Southern Oregon.
Oh, okay. So you're not going far.
Nah, it's this really sick, dried out lake bed.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's magical out there. But if I could it's almost on some like Mad Max-ish. Like way out there, you see nothing but vastness.
Yeah, it's like the whole ground is just cracked.
Yeah. It's so sick. But
hell yeah.
I would do it there. Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's a rad choice.
Yeah.
And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday. Who would you want an album from?
I
can see the wheels turning. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I'm like, man, who would I want an album from? Could be alive, could be dead, haven't made an album in years.
Or made an album yesterday.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a wild question. Man, I don't know. I'm stumped because I'm like, Michael Jackson would be the obvious, but I'm like, would he make anything that would sound? He probably would.
I mean, his name has come up before, and I'm always curious, like, what music he would have made. Like, for some of the biggest names, I always wonder what they would have done music-wise post-pandemic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the things where it's like his music always seemed to surface during times of need. Like, that was something that was kind of his strength. I mean, shout out Free Willy soundtrack. But, like, it just, it was one of the things where like he always kind of made something for those moments. Yeah. So him in particular, I would be curious for an album now. But, yeah, definitely been said a few times.
I would maybe say... I would say Fabulous. That's one.
Okay.
I need a Fab album.
Yeah. Damn, that's a name I haven't heard in a little bit.
Yeah, man. I just went right back into the catalog too. I actually have like a hard drive that has a bunch of music on it. And
hell yeah.
I have the soul tapes. I just like really ran through.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, like Fab really was one of them dudes that was just cold, like super cold.
Damn, that is. Now I'm going to have to go. I haven't listened to him in a minute.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
He's cold, man.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hell yeah.
That's a good question.
I mean, that's a great answer.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up.
Wait.
What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and January?
More music, more insight. I think the game and the method for me now is to show more of myself, and I hope to be able to convey that through the music, but right now it's not really enough, right, in this day and age. So definitely more music, more content, and just more growth. Like I'm at a point now where I'm just not gonna stop. Like, like it's just what it is.
Never gonna stop.
You know what I mean? So
hell yeah, no, definitely looking forward to that. For this next one, go and look straight at the camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
You guys can find me on Instagram at SuaveTheJedi. You could also find me on TikTok at Master SuaveTheJedi. And then you can find me on every streaming platform known to man, whether that's Apple Music at SuaveTheJedi, Spotify, Tidal, Amazon, and literally virtually whatever else. I think there's like 30 other streaming sites that you can find it on. But yeah, everything's pretty much SuaveTheJedi.
Hell yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you want to put on while you're on here?
Shout out to the Shades boys. Shout out to Jimmy, my boy Jimmy.
I was like, wait a second.
My boy too. He's all the way in Greece right now. Shout out to Lambo, of course. Shout out to Green. Shout out to Mike. Shout out my baby. Shout out Sweet Bee. Shout out Mom and Pops. And just shout out to Portland. Portland's a wonderful space and place, and I hope more and more people get to see and appreciate the wealth of creative fucking powerhouses that are here, and just, you know, people like Jimmy too. I mean, we're here trying to connect the dots, and Portland's got a hot spot on it, and I'm just, you know, happy to be here and blessed. So appreciate you.
Hell yeah. With that being said, we've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Word.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation. But what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? It's a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
Go listen to Days Before Rodeo, Travis Scott. That's a deep cut.
Hell yeah.
Or FWA by Lil Wayne.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Those are two solid recs. Damn, you're coming out with quality music for this whole episode.
Yeah.
All right, but with that being said, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Jimmy.
Hell yeah. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Suave the Jedi.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap. This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.